Hey everyone, welcome to another Jarrett Finney video. Let me adjust here just a little bit. Okay, so surprisingly, I'm not going to be talking about cancel culture and how reactionaries get worked up over the dumbest stuff, such as cartoon characters not being featured. I'm going to take a different approach today. I'm actually going to talk about why I consider myself on the left. Now, I know that's a very broad thing to say, considering if you've ever been part of leftist communities, the left is the worst politically when it comes to gatekeeping. As in, oh, you're not left enough. You don't read enough theory. You're not left enough. You believe in too much neoliberalism. You're not left enough because you're not principled in your ideas of socialism while living in a capitalist society. I consider myself on the left, and if a neoliberal says, "Hey, I've been convinced by left arguments, and I want to be part of the left," why not accept them? Even if you disagree with them, if there's a potential that they can be moved, like take them to the left. Now, contemporarily speaking, I consider myself a democratic socialist, not in the way that Bernie Sanders presents it, when he actually means social democrat. I consider myself anti-capitalist, but I'm in a capitalist society, and I need to acknowledge that as I go slowly as we go slowly toward a more different style of workplace. I want a workplace where the workers own the means of production. So speaking from a Marxian sense, I think I believe in democracy. I believe workers should have a say in the workplace they're in, considering they have about what, a third of their lives devoted to working, and they don't have much say. They're within a hierarchical structure, to which is essentially authoritarianism. It's just me, but I'm not here to talk about that. I can get more semantical about that in a future video. But yeah, I consider myself now a democratic socialist. Um, and let's just go back a little bit. I'll give a brief history. When I say democratic socialist, let's just say, okay, let me rephrase it, because I know that term turns people off. I'm a super capitalist. I, I, I love capitalism so much, I think everybody should be able to participate. Workers can all participate and have a vote on how their establishment is to work, or what products are to go through, or how things are to be manufactured, or who to effectively advertise to. I love I love people so much. I think they should all have involvement. All right. That's a joke that's been going on, especially through the Vosh community. But I hope I didn't turn anyone off with that name. But just let me get some background context. So I would consider myself politically involved at a young age, not in the sense of like I was out there protesting when I was 11, but my dad has always been very politically literate. Especially during the Bush era after 9/11, I did a little bit more listening to what my dad had to say. And he early on, he was critiquing the war in Iraq. And I didn't understand that because, well, I was 11 and the terrorists came through, the propaganda. The terrorists came in and they bombed the Twin Towers and destroyed them. And that scared the fadoodles out of me. Um, Little did I know what nuance was. But that being said, I've always had the left wing perspective when I was younger. Not to mention, my dad always presented me right wing arguments just for a basic knowledge on how they work and how to counteract them. And look, I'm not saying right wingers are bad people. I just think a lot of right wing arguments tend to be in bad faith, but I'll get to that a little bit later. A lot of the information I got was through my dad. This is even up until high school. In high school, I was arguing with people from 15 up until I was 17. Um, because when I was 17 in high school, that's when Obama was elected president of the United States. Though I didn't do much research on Obama, but, you know, everyone had that dose of hopium that Obama was going to be the great change for this country. And I would argue with high school buddies of mine, they would say, Obama's a socialist. And I wasn't a socialist at the time. I was I was just like, I'm left wing, but socialism is radical without actually understanding what socialism is. Like, socialism is just too far left. Soviet Union? But then if you asked me in high school at the time, what's the difference between socialism and communism, I wouldn't be able to tell you at that time. But no, Obama was not a socialist. We know now he very much was not a socialist. He very much was, he advertised himself as a populist, and he won the 2008 election. So I'd always been arguing with people about politics, and I always had a fascination with politics when I was younger, like how the institutions worked. It wasn't until college where I learned, like, oh man, the United States institutions are incredibly flawed. That's nothing new. Hold on, let's see. I wrote down some notes, so give me just a little bit of time. Oh, even in college, I would have political arguments with other cohorts, other colleagues, other friends, other people, and I got fed up to a point. I think it was after 2012. That was the first time I voted, was in 2012, and I voted for Obama, and I was proud at the time, but I won't pretend I did research. Anything I did was very limited. It was very much more of a, Obama, he did good things, right? But I was so tired of the party bickering, which has been going on forever. I recognize that. I was a lot younger and I was a lot more naive. Please forgive me. Like, I understand now. I was so tired of it that I tuned out from politics and I just stayed solely in geek culture. And, geek culture, I've been able to understand it through its philosophies, but I'm not ashamed of myself. In retrospect, I think being out of politics was one of the best things because I understand why people don't involve themselves in politics, and I can further understand how to convince people, hey, just at least go vote. Just do simple research. If you have any questions, ask me or ask anyone that you know who's politically involved. Get your opinions from there. But I very much wasn't into politics because I was just so tired of fighting with people. But she said, I know it was very naive at the time. I've learned. Forgive me. Well, it wasn't until my dad passed away. He passed away May 2nd, 2015. And, obviously that was a hard blow on me. Because my dad, one of the most intelligent guys, whether it came to, like, science and astronomy, he was a self-made handyman, I guess you could say. He learned all this stuff by himself. And he was politically intelligent like none other. I wouldn't find out till years later he was for universal health care and universal education. I always thought he was more on like the Democratic Party loyalist side, which is what I was when I learned from my dad. But he never was. He was very critical of the Democratic Party. Just more critical of conservatives and the right wing and Republicans. But he passed away. And I still decided not to get involved in learning more about politics and what's happening in the modern day. Well, a little bit later, I would have a girlfriend at that time. I think it was around 2016. And I met her father, who probably still is insanely conservative. I don't have interest in knowing. He was very conservative. And he would talk to me about politics, even though he knew, like, my ideology was on the left. But I also acknowledged that, I don't have enough of a basis to have an argument. I'm not going to argue stuff that I don't know, because that's just in bad faith. But his arguments, it was the first time I learned about Bernie Sanders. And for me, I was just like, Bernie's just radical. Oh, that's ridiculous. Especially, when you're not able to properly discern these arguments that are presented, such as Bernie Sanders wants free education. He wants free college. How are we going to pay for it? And when you don't have that knowledge, and when you don't quite understand institutions, and when you don't understand how other countries have made these things work, it sounds very convincing. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I was ignorant, very ignorant, but his argument sounded compelling. I was just like, look, I disagree with him. Like, I know I disagree with him, but he presents his arguments really well, and he's obviously literate politically. Well, you know, it still didn't motivate me to get into politics. Even after Hillary lost the 2016 election, which is her fault, but I'm not going to get into that. I knew I didn't like Trump, though. I voted Hillary. And I remember at the time, like, the emails were leaked, and I was just like, why is Hillary getting so much hate? While not looking into it, I was just like, oh, the Clintons don't deserve all this hate. Trump is a piece of shit. Like the perfect politically illiterate layman. Just being like, oh, I've heard good things about them in the past, but what the hell? They're not good people. But, you know, I did hear Trump's rhetoric and how he would speak from both sides of his mouth, and a lot of the stuff that he said was very bigoted, and I was against it. But I still didn't involve myself politically. Well, about a year later, 2017, I would have a new girlfriend, and I would meet one of her family, her uncle. Her uncle was a very pleasant guy to talk to, very funny. We had a lot of fun joking, but it was until the end of that interaction, he just started going, he went into politics out of nowhere. And he started praising Trump. He's like, you know, he's done really good things. And I didn't feel that Trump did. And the things that I heard from other people, like, no, but I couldn't really refute it. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the backing. But I remember sitting there feeling very uncomfortable. Not because he brought it up. He brought it up for his own reasons. But being like, I should be able to fight this. I should be able to argue against this. But I'm not able to because I don't have the political backing. I don't have the political knowledge behind it. So it would be when I get my new job, where I forgot to mention I've been fairly pro-union from an early age, considering I had to pay for college out of my own pocket while living at home, working full-time and going to school full-time for an organization for 6.5 years that was not for the worker. So I've been pro-union for a little while. And the job that I got later, I'm not going to display where I work because I don't want where I work to be held accountable for anything that I say. But the place I would work would be under a union. And man, I've been treated so much better. Oh, hands down, the organization I work for is hands down so much better. Well, I started to delve deeper into politics again. And so I started doing the first thing I could was looking into political commentators. Now, at the time, I think it was 2017. Yeah, it was 2017. It might have been 2016 going into 2017 when the anti-SJW arc became a big thing. So Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, who I listened to. I didn't agree with their side. So my thought process was, okay, let me go and jump into an aspect that I disagree with. Now, this would be something I didn't learn from, obviously, from 2015, was I'd hear their arguments. I know I disagree with them. But I didn't really have a proper way to counteract their arguments, other than things here and there. I know I'd listened to Ben Shapiro, and I remember he went on an anti-union rant, and I was just like, what the hell are you talking about, man? It's like, oh, unions are bad. Corporations and unions, like, the workers should be able to represent themselves. And I'm like, well, that's a problem when you're trying to get a job and you're trying to represent yourself and you're asking for too much. And the organization or the corporation can be like, yeah, that guy's not asking for that, so we'll take that guy, even if you are more qualified. Uh, so I listen to Steven Crowder, and Crowder has always bothered me because he's a comedian that just does not land. He's not funny. He's so dishonest. But I remember listening to these guys and being like, all right, these arguments sound effective, but I don't agree with them. And I know Jordan Peterson, he's like, oh, I'm not a political commentator. I can't do his voice. I'm not a political commentator, but sometimes it's the postmodernists that get involved, and then they start restricting speech, and I don't want to be fined for it because of the Bill C-16 or whatever, which I deliberately misrepresented, but I created a following. Oh yeah, Jordan Peterson, he's a genius. He's just a genius. He supports freedom of speech. He supports freedom of everything. Jordan Peterson, he's just God. And then Steven Crowder, like, is him. I don't even want to do an impersonation of him because he sucks. Well, anyway, that was too long of a rant. Started delving into more political commentators, more on the left. And I'd be exposed to David Pakman, which was great. But the person that really, not triggered, but really elevated my political awakening was Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk. That guy I will always have a soft spot for. I'm very biased toward him. Granted, I disagree with a lot of his takes today, but that man is incredibly important to me in my, in being able to see a way to understand why I'm on the left, how to argue for my positions. And he brought a lot of empiricism. David Pakman too, obviously. But Kyle Kulinski, he's the one who is just the chef's kiss for me at the time. Again, I'm always going to have a soft spot for that guy. And David Pakman was incredible too, just because the way he presented himself, very formal, very professor-like. I know he did teach at university for a little bit. And, Kyle Kulinski exposed me to all these ideas. Not Dave Rubin. Fuck Dave Rubin. I hate that guy. All these ideas, like Medicare for all and a living wage and ending the drug war. Crazy concepts now, aren't they? But, at the time before that, when I was listening to Shapiro and all them, it was just like, I know our healthcare system sucks, but, like, Medicare for all, is that realistic? I think we need a better way to go about things. And then he laid out Medicare for all, and he gave sources to proper reading. And I was just like, Medicare for all, like, why haven't we done this, like, before I was aware of how it worked? Why haven't we done this now? But, I'd listen to stuff even before them, such as the Majority Report, and I thought Sam Cedar at the time was very pretentious. I thought Michael Brooks at the time was boring. Michael Brooks is incredibly important to me now. Anyway, but it was Kulinski that would help me be pushed to the left and be pushed toward social democracy. So having capitalism at its, like, before it goes socialist point, being like taking things off the table, healthcare, education, legalize drugs, like some drugs, or at least decriminalize at the very least. But Dave Rubin talked about all these ideas. It made my brain go in recovery mode. And it would also get closer to the primaries, and, the stigma of Bernie Sanders being socialist still scared me. But all these political commentators I would listen to, they'd be like, Bernie Sanders is like the middle in Europe. Like, our middle is fairly right-wing, in accordance to the Overton window pertaining to the rest of the world. I grew to love Bernie Sanders, man. I love the guy still. Like, I consider myself further to the left of him, but that guy is fighting for the left. He's fighting for the working person. Bernie Sanders has done good things for political discourse. He was paramount to why policy is presented the way it is now. I love Bernie Sanders. And I would also, during the primaries, I would be very, very, very involved in political discourse, online and in person, like with friends before the pandemic, obviously. And, you know, arguing with Pete Buttigieg supporters and Beto O'Rourke supporters. There were some, I guess. Even supporters of Bloomberg. Ugh. But also mainly just being like, oh, okay, here's why Trump sucks. I can give him credit when he does some good things, but overall, Trump sucks, and here's why. And then also trying to present Bernie Sanders in a very palatable sense, presenting policies such as a living wage, free college, Medicare for all, many other things that Bernie Sanders had on his platform. I apologize, I'm not thinking of all of his platform at the moment as I'm saying all this. Now, the issue of minimum wage, I would actually agree with conservatives that minimum wage shouldn't exist. But conservatives will just leave it as it shouldn't exist because it just shouldn't. My basis is it shouldn't exist so long as unions are more powerful. Well, we don't have stronger unions in the United States. Crazy. So, take what I can get. And I also got a lot into, outside of this, more political commentating. I got into more of the like debate lord stuff because back in 2017 there was no one on the left that was able to actually do the blood sport of debate. And then I saw Destiny. Destiny is not my favorite, by the way, but there is no doubt about it that he is great when it comes to debate. He's very effective. I think he has been very effective on online discourse. And then eventually I'd be exposed to Vosh Video. I understand the guy has a lot of controversy behind him. I'm not here to get into that, but he is currently my favorite political commentator at this moment in time. He has helped push me further to the left. Well, anyway, Bernie dropped out, and I still had a lot of influence from Kyle Kalinske, who said, I don't think I can vote for Biden based off of principle. And I had that same mindset because Biden had an atrocious track record. He worked with segregationists early on in his career. He wrote the fucking 1994 crime bill, which has led to an increase in the drug war and more powerful cartels. He was for the Iraq War, and at the time I was just like, I don't think I can vote for Biden. Now, however, that being said, I would never condone anyone who said, yeah, I'm voting for Biden. But I will say, the online left who would vote for Biden, they were the worst in endorsing Biden. Even my friends were terrible at arguing for Biden. Because it was always like, you just don't get it. It's like, well, don't condescend me, help me get it. Like, help me understand. And it wasn't really nuanced in the way of harm reduction. And I wouldn't understand the harm reduction arguments until the BLM movements. When Trump was very authoritarian to the point of fascistic and was really going down on the protesters. And his rhetoric I knew to be extremely dangerous and very insightful, as we would later see on January 6th, but that's outside of BLM. And the best person to endorse Joe Biden, even if unintentionally, was Donald Trump. That's a good thing Donald Trump did, is he really opened my eyes as to be like, yeah, if we don't have Biden, we have Trump, because that's the two-party system. That's how the two-party system works. Unfortunately, I do wish we didn't have the two-party system, but so long as we have the Electoral College and we don't have ranked choice voting, it's kind of what we're stuck with. Hopefully it can change, and unfortunately third parties have no traction in the United States. Even when they did have traction, it was about, 1%? I think Ralph Nader Nader had the most leverage in 2000. Sorry, I just went on a total tangent there. Point being, there's been a lot more success in taking over the Democratic Party from the inside than there has been third party influence getting into politics. So getting like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, lots of other people into office. A lot of people in the recent election. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on names. I should have wrote these down. And now Nina Turner's going for Congress. I'm so stoked. Like, there's been a lot more effectiveness for change going directly through the Democratic Party in recent years. So this is since 2016, mind you. Than there has been getting a third party into power. A third party into power and having that accelerationist mindset is just not realistic, and it's really easy. It's not strategic. It's really easy to knock down. I ended up voting for Biden. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of my discourse would be like, hey, Biden still sucks. Like, he really sucks. But look at how much worse this guy is. But thanks to Bernie Sanders, Biden was forced to move his platform further to the left. Even if some of it was an illusion, it's further to the left. But anyway, we're going on to now. We had the January 6th insurrection, to where you can see people weren't held accountable for their incitement, even if indirectly. And a lot of the part of being on the left and why I'm for stuff such as worker co-ops is I've done a lot of look into studies. So with Medicare for All, there was a study that came out through the University of Massachusetts Amherst that said Medicare for All would save $5 trillion net save, mind you, because Medicare for All would obviously be paid for through tax dollars rather than through private insurers. And then public education, just to pay for tuition for 1 year. I don't remember which study it came out of, but it said it would cost $73 billion a year. But in 2018, there was a bill that passed that increased the military budget by $80 billion. So we would have spent $73 billion and then had $7 billion left over to do whatever. Like, since getting into these studies and learning how to look at sources and also being able to look at argumentation, there's no way I could be part of the right now. Honestly. Like, I'm not opposed to the empirical evidence, but, this is one of my gripes with people like Steven Crowder, is I remember in 2018, or it might have been 2019 actually. Yeah, it was 2019. He came out with a video about why Medicare for All and how it's debunked. And one of the reasons he gave was the United States has more MRI machines. First off, if we're going on a basis of Medicare for All won't work because there's a certain amount of MRI machines, first off, that's dumb. That's very dishonest. And also, Japan has way more MRI machines than the United States does per capita, per capita. So in proportion, and Japan has a significantly smaller population. So, oh god, mental gymnastics, being able to learn like the argumentation, whataboutisms, false equivalencies, mental gymnastics for days. Like, oh my god, some of these people I argue with online, they'd be on a pedestal. They'd get an Olympic medal for mental gymnastics. Like, it's amazing. But yeah, and I've been reading more into theory, reading more Marx recently. And, in high school I thought, oh, Marx, that's ridiculous. I didn't actually read the Communist Manifesto, but from what everyone had told me, oh, that idea is just ridiculous. Or workers owning the means of production? Really? And I read it now, I'm just like, oh yeah, workers having a say. Worker co-ops and like diminishing the hierarchy as much as possible. Now, I'm not saying socialism is the perfect solution to end like racial inequality and that stuff, but being able to elevate other areas socioeconomically, whether it be for minorities or, just for workers in general. Like, I think socialism is overall a better thing. We're not nearly there yet, don't get me wrong. And unfortunately, as much as people are principled, I listened to Mike from PA recently, and that guy drives me nuts. People want accelerationism, and accelerationism doesn't work. Incrementalism is going to have to work. So unfortunately, for some areas, neoliberal ideas are better to jump into rather than socialist ideas. I know that's weird to explain, but I consider myself a socialist. But when it comes to incremental change and getting to the places that we want and having proper praxis, look, we live in a capitalist society. Don't know what to tell you, and you're going to have to use those means to get to an end. Have that incremental change. Incrementalism. Yeah, that's a lot of why I'm on the left. Oh, I forgot to mention. So, a lot of political commentators I look into. I love David Pakman, Kyle Kalinske, even if his takes have been very recently. The Humanist Report with Mike Figueredo, The Majority Report with Sam Cedar, The Rational National with David Dole. I love David Dole. Oh, I love David Dole. That guy's solid. Michael Brooks' death during the pandemic, that hit me hard. At first I thought he was pretty boring. Just because his, I have that monotone kind of voice, I'm Michael Brooks, but when you actually listen to his substance, man, that guy was smart and essential for the left. I think he's one of the best debaters we had, and he could have been like a modern day Noam Chomsky if he didn't just die. Man, that guy, his loss is such a detriment. It still hurts. And now I listen to Destiny, and my favorite YouTube commentator is Vosh. I know there's going to be a lot of controversy for people when I say that, but I do love Vosh. He's very good at arguing for the left. I know he has a really bad past, and it's been referenced quite a lot, especially in bad faith, but Vosh does a lot of good for the left. A lot of good. We can talk about that. People can disagree. Well, it's a big part of why I'm on the left. It's a big part of why I consider myself a democratic socialist. It's why I consider myself a socialist. Even among a capitalist society. I'm born in the United States. What can I do? Accept incremental change and hopefully influence people to have these ideas so that incremental change can eventually lead to these higher ideals so that the working class can eventually be elevated along with other areas. I've always been pro-woman autonomy and men having no say over it. I've been pro that, very pro that. I'm a very privileged white dude, but, I like people of other races. Oh, no. They're not bad people, but they've been vilified and gentrified for many ages, and being able to expose these socioeconomic impacts of centuries previously made decisions and how it influences the modern day. I don't think there's any way I could not have been part of the left. So let me finish with this. I'll finish with this. I'll shut up from here. It's going on 35 minutes. First, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I'd appreciate it. I'm going to shamelessly plug here. Second, to people on the left who are listening to this, reduce the amount of gatekeeping that you can. I understand there are people that you disagree with. That doesn't mean they're not a part of the left. Doesn't mean you're any better. Doesn't mean they're any worse. Even for someone who's a liberal, if they are willing to be exposed to ideas on the left, accept them. Because one of the biggest turnoffs for people like liberals is how the left represents itself. Luckily, I'm part of a very good Facebook group with my friends Amanda and David. I'm a I'm grateful they decided to make me a moderator on there. It's a group called on Facebook called "The Leftists Your Uncle Warned You About." I do recommend checking it out. It's a funny name too, but it's very, very diverse. Well, it's meant for the left, obviously, but we've accepted neoliberals, people who are Marxist-Leninists. Even though I'm more of the libertarian left, Marxist-Leninists, many broad people, and having civil discussions and basically eliminating gatekeeping as much as possible in order to expose not only these ideas but having proper praxis, so being able to get these ideas implemented properly. So fuck gatekeeping. I'm very against it. The only time gatekeeping should be done is if it's in a professional job setting. Like, I don't have a degree in architecture. Don't give me a job in constructing a home. Like, I understand gatekeeping for stuff like that, but for helping people be exposed to our ideas, fucking cut it out. Anyway, if you made it through, I'm grateful for you. I love you. I love you so much. My fellow peoples, my fellow listeners. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Until the next video.